Have you ever been in a situation where you were like, let's say you were working at a job or a company or something, and there was a person there that gave you such a hard time throughout your time at that company, but you eventually get a chance to get a little payback? You get to witness a little karma. Well, I have a situation like that happened to me, and I'll tell you about that right after the intro. Okay, so this story takes place a little while, when I was really, really young. I had only been out of high school for a little while, and it takes place on the first like real job that I got in my life. Now, before we get into this, make sure you look down there and click the subscribe button. Click like, make sure you click the bell just to make sure that you get notified if you like hearing different little crazy stories and wacky stories and stuff like that. But yeah, this happened like in one of my very first like real jobs after I graduated from high school. I worked for a manufacturing company, like a production style manufacturing where it was like a assembly line work and stuff like that. And I worked for this company for probably about a year or so, and I was pretty good at my job. I was one of those people that like I'm not really an outgoing, super talkative person. I'm the type of person as far as at work where you can put me in an area and I just generally keep to myself and do my job. I like to be that person that you don't have to worry about. You don't have to micromanage and stuff like that. I just do my job. I know what I have to do and I just do it. And one thing about this particular job is that I knew my job. I was really good at it. And I can't take all the credit for myself. Everybody on my shift was good. And when I started, I got put on the shift with a bunch of good people and they started me off pretty good with like really good training and everything. And I was to the point where I could, I was running an assembly line, and everybody had their own assembly line of machinery that they had to run. And I was to the point where I had everything down so quick. I could unload and load the machine in between batches really quick. And when the machine breaks down or have stops and stuff, which happens pretty often, I was really good at getting it back up running. So most of the time, if you looked in my area, all of my stuff was running fine, and you never really had to worry about me. And I exceeded production goals every day. It was just something that, I kind of learned because I was surrounded by good people and I learned my job pretty good. And I was just good at my job. And I was doing exactly what how I wanted to be. I wanted to be that guy that you can stick in an area and don't have to worry about him and know at the end of the day, his job was going to be done. So after about a year or so of working at this company, there was one other shift where they were having problems. Now, this company was a 24-hour company. They ran 24 hours a day and they were 4 shifts. They worked 8 shifts apiece. So it was like 4 shifts that rotated back and forth throughout the day. So one of the other shifts, they were having problems. They couldn't make production. Every day they couldn't make production. They had a lot of employees on that shift that, had problems keeping the machines running and getting the production that the company wanted for them. So a way that they decided to try to help this company was to split that shift up. So they took like certain people from that shift and moved them to other shifts that was doing a lot better, and then trading them with people from the other shift and to go to that shift and try to overall just spread out the manpower of that shift, and like maybe get them some better training when they go to other shifts, and maybe make the shift that's having problems get better because they will bring some people that were good at their jobs to that shift. So I start on this new shift, and I get to this shift, and it's, for me, is no different. I'm still making the production goals that I've made before in the previous shift. I'm still getting my work done, and it's the same way. I unload the machine and load the machine during batches as fast as I've always had, and I'm always keeping my machines running, and everything was good. And you would think, like, if you were a supervisor of that shift and you are used to having problems all the time with the employees, you would think that if you get a couple of people on your shift that actually are doing good, you think you would, kind of like, be happy about that, because, if your employees are looking good, are doing good and making production goals, and you're the supervisor, it's going to make you look good. But I kind of had the opposite reaction with this guy. I just noticed that sometimes I would be, going around back and forth on my assembly lines, doing the little things that I had to do. And I would just have this feeling of somebody watching me. You know how you get that feeling sometime where you kind of feel like the hairs on the back of your neck will stand up. It feels like, I don't know, it's just a weird feeling you get when somebody's watching you. So after a while, after having that feeling a couple of times, I would look down the assembly line, and the assembly line, you know, it was a section that was my section, but it went all the way down to the end of the building, which was probably a good 50, 60 feet away as far as how far along it went past my area. So I looked down the row all the way down to the next few sections, and I can see the supervisor of that shift standing all the way at the end of that shift, hiding behind a machine with his head peeking out, and he's staring at me. And I'm wondering, why is he doing that? At first, I didn't know if he was looking at me or not, but after a while, I caught him doing it a couple of times, and each time I caught him doing it, he was on different parts of the building. Like one day he would be down all the way towards my left, and then another day he may be down all the way towards my right. So it was just a situation where I just kept noticing him standing down there just looking at me, and I wondered what it was, and I thought I was doing something wrong. So I kind of started even working even harder, you know, at my job, trying to make sure my stuff is completely straight, so there's, you know, nothing can be said about it. So after a while, it's like once he noticed that I saw him, every once in a while he would come through my shift and he would stop and he would have these like really weird, awkward conversations with me. It was small talk, but it was just awkward conversations. And I didn't know, and you know, I had no idea why these conversations was going on. And then one day I'm walking through and going on my lunch break and stuff, and I overhear him talking to another employee. He was like it was like a little room that you get to before you get to the break room. So as I was going to the break room, I overhear him talking to one of the employees, and they were talking about me, and he was talking about how he doesn't trust me and he keeping an eye on me and I'm doing something. He thought there was something that I was doing wrong. I don't know what it was. So I didn't pay any attention to it. And I walked into the break room and I got my chips and soda or whatever it was. And then I went back out to my station and I started working again. So this went on some more, you know, for a couple of months and stuff like that. And I kept catching him looking at me. And after he knew that I was catching him, it got to a point where he wasn't even trying to hide anymore. Sometimes he would just come and just post himself right at the end of my line and would just watch with his arms folded and stuff. So one day I go over there and I ask him about it. I was like, I asked him, does he have a problem with me? And he was like, why do you say that? And I said, yeah, I've been noticing that you've been hiding and watching me for months now. I was like, I don't understand what's going on. And I was like, and I've been looking at the production and my production is higher than anybody else on this shift. So I'm not understanding what's the problem. So then he kind of got really annoyed with me asking him the question and said some things that I didn't like. Just the way he spoke to me and the things he said, I just didn't like. He just was, basically he was saying that he doesn't trust me and he thinks I'm doing something. Like he kind of thought that I was fudging the numbers or something like that, which the way that place was set up, is no way you can do it because I don't actually see the numbers. The numbers get printed out after the fact. But he thought I had figured out some kind of way to cheat, I guess, to cheat my production numbers. And he just kept watching me and stuff like that. And I didn't know what to do because I'm like, I don't know how to cheat the production numbers on this equipment. I don't even know how did your computer get the numbers, you know, for me to even cheat, you know. The only reason I know the numbers is when he prints them out and posts them on the board, then I can go and look at them. So after we had that conversation got pretty heated, you know, because I'm the type of person that, you know, I'm kind of laid back and I'm nice and I'll be nice to you, but I have no problem, you know, defending myself and standing up for myself. And he probably wasn't expecting that. You know, so it kind of got a little heated, but the conversation ended and we walked away and I went back to doing my work. But after that conversation, I think he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder because then he got to a point where he was trying to get me fired. Like there was a time where I was called into the office with the general manager and they wanted to write me up for something, but I had all of the proof that I needed to show that what my supervisor was trying to say I didn't do. So everything he tried, it was like he created these things that he wanted to write me up for, which never worked. And even though it didn't work, it still just made my life there horrible, you know. And I worked there total about 3 years. and like my last year and a half is when I had to deal with this supervisor, and it was just an ongoing thing. He just made my life horrible from then on. I tried to get switched back to the shift that I was on. They wouldn't let me do it, and I just had to deal with it. I just had to, deal with it. There was nobody there that understood what was going on or knew what was going on, and like he kind of won other people over to where there were others that was giving me looks and stuff like that also as I was there. And I can hear people whispering as I walk in a room and stuff like that. It just made my life really horrible, So at the end of about my third year with this company, the company, well, they had financial problems the whole entire time I was there, but they was working through it. But towards the end of my third year, that was when the company decided that they can't overcome the financial problems that they have, and they're just going to shut the whole company down, and they're laying everybody off. So, I come in one day, and I had just bought a car like a month before, so I just had this car payment and stuff like that, thinking I have a stable job. But, I come in one day, they call everybody into the meeting room, and that's when they let us know that they're going to shut the company down in 3 weeks, and in 3 weeks, we're going to be out of a job. So 3 weeks come and go, and we're out of a job, So I'm sitting here, I'm like, what am I going to do? This is the first time in my life that I actually, since I started working at the age of 15, this is the first time in my life to where I don't have a job. So I didn't know what I was going to do. So of course, the first thing I do is I go out there and try to find a job. I'm going, this is before the internet days and all of that stuff. So when you went to look for a job, you actually had to drive around to different facilities and fill out applications manually and all of that kind of stuff. So I did that, I'm going to every place I could think of trying to find another job. And it didn't take too long. About 3 or 4 weeks later, I ended up finding a job. It wasn't a job that I thought I would be at for a long time, but it was a decent job, and it was a job, it was way better than not working. So I found a job. It was at another like kind of manufacturing industrial place, and I start working there, and I'm working there for about a month, 2 months. And the same thing with the previous job. I got there and I was around a good group of people, and they trained me pretty well, and I picked up everything, pretty quickly. And within that 2 months, I was already like exceeding production goals on a daily basis and everything. I was that guy again. I was that guy where you can sit on a production line and just forget about him. And at the end of the day, you can pull a sheet and see that he's made production for the day. So after about 2 months, 2.5 months or so, we get a new employee. I get approached by the supervisor. He calls me in the office and he's like, we got a new employee coming in today. I'm going to put him with you so that you can train him, so that you can, show him the ropes. He was like, you pick things up pretty quick and it looks like you got everything down. And he was like, I want to make sure that other people learn things the same way you did. So I'm going to put him with you. He'll be here in a couple of hours. I'll let you know when he get here. So at that point, I had never trained anyone or anything like that. So this was going to be a first time for me. And I really didn't know how good I would be at training somebody at a job. But, I was like, that's what they said we have to do. And, that's what I got to do. So the time comes and the new employee come and the supervisor calls me to the office, and I go to the office and I walk in and he introduced me to the guy, and I look, and it was that supervisor from the previous job that gave me a hard time for like my last year and a half there. So I look at him and I'm like, oh, he's the new guy. And he was like, yeah, and then he tells the supervisor, yeah, stick with him. He knows what he's doing. Listen to everything he say. And then we go walk out into the plant and start doing our work. And the whole time he's following me around, and all I can do is just kind of laugh to myself, because I was like, this is like karma. If you never believed in karma or anything like that before, this is completely karma right here. So, but he still gave me a hard time. Every time I tried to show him anything, he didn't want to listen. He wanted to act like he already knew what he was doing and everything. And I dealt with him for probably about his first 4 hours on the job. And then it was time for him to go on his lunch break. And I told him, okay, it's time for your lunch break. Go ahead and, go on your lunch break. Come see me when you get back. And we got some more stuff we'll go over. So he goes on his lunch break, and I go back to my station and I start doing my work, and I'm working because I had came in several hours before he did. So I had already had my lunch break. So I'm working on my station and I'm doing my work, and then around the time I'm looking, and I could see when he went out on his lunch break, he walked just right outside the front door, and his car was parked in the parking lot, but it was like right in front of the front door. So you can look out the front door and see his car. So I would look out there and I see him sitting in his car. I see him sitting in the front seat of his car. I guess he ate his lunch in his car. He didn't bother going to the break room or anything like that. And he sat out there for his whole lunch break, and I'm working, and I would go and check on him every once in a while, just walk by and look. Then all of a sudden, I went one time to walk by and look, and I see his headlights come on, and then his car start up, and he drove off, and he never came back. I guess he couldn't deal with, he was probably thinking the same thing I was thinking. How can you, run into this type of karma, right after, giving somebody a hard time for a year and a half, then the company shuts down, and then you come back to your job and you are in the reverse situation. Now I'm the one looking at him. I'm the one evaluating him. And I guess he couldn't deal with it. So he sat out there for his lunch break. He sat out there his whole lunch break, but when it was time for him to come back, he left, and I never saw him again, never heard from him again. But yeah, that was crazy. Have you ever had a situation like that? It's bad. I never want somebody to not want to work at a job, because I know how bad it feels when you work somewhere and you need the job. Most of the time when you have a job, you need your job, and somebody's giving you a hard time, So I know how bad it feels, but it was so satisfying to have that situation to where the person that gave me such a hard time for such a long time, I ended up being the one, even though I didn't give him a hard time, but I just got satisfaction of knowing that him just being there, having to listen to me, having to follow me around, probably burned him up. Well, I know it did. It burned him up to a point to where he left. He went on lunch break and left and never came back. But yeah, that was one of my stories. If you want to hear more stories like that, just all kinds of crazy stories like that, make sure you subscribe below, hit the like button, share it, comment and everything, And if you got stories that you got stories you want to submit to me to tell on this channel, go ahead and go to DLJonesBooks.com/questions. Submit your story there, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. But that's the end of my story. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. You made it to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. While you're here, why don't you check out that video right there, or maybe that one right there? And while you're at it, go ahead and click my image in the middle there and subscribe to this channel.